W, named after our president, Richard Dreyfuss, really puts the vice in Vice President Dick Cheney and shows us that when it came to the war in Iraq, intelligence was lacking in more ways than one. Take a look.
My office sent to you spy satellite photos that showed that WMDs could be hidden in caves that you never responded to.
We analyzed those photos, Mr. Vice President, and they are actually trenches, watering holes for cattle, not caves.
That's not what my people told me.
Vice, you grew up in Wyoming. You should damn well know cattle.
Please welcome Richard Dreyfuss. Here, Richard, over
Dick
here.
Cheney. Dick Cheney. Is there a lawyer in the room?
I'm assuming you're not a fan of Cheney.
A fan?
A fan, and yet you play him to the hilt very well.
Yeah, you should see my Hitler. I know I'm not a fan of Cheney's, and I just look like him. And I stayed at a Holiday Inn last night, so I'm really smart.
So then we can assume that he hasn't called you to tell you what a great job he did in the film.
You can assume that.
Okay.
Wait, but an actor, I thought you
Look,
you
lots
guys
of
are
time
actors.
He'll be indicted for something.
You have to draw on some kind of a positive thing about the character, do you not? Even if you're playing Hitler.
Not really. If you really get into acting as acting, there are mysteries about acting and things that are really noble and magical. But I would tell young actors that there's Hitler and Jesus in everyone. And your job is to bring out the appropriate Jesus, the appropriate Hitler. And you find him in your own behavior every day. And the job of the art form is to show that behavior to the human race.
What? Go ahead. I was just going to say, how did you nail down his speech pattern? Because you talk of fast, but he talks very slow. It's very slow and a kind of monotone sort of speech.
Well, he's been in the public eye for now 35, 45 years, and he's been vice president forever. And the last 8 years, he's been around a lot. It wasn't difficult to put your hands on a lot of stuff. It was realizing that he was thinking what he was thinking, which I didn't know he actually thought. That surprised me.
How did you know what he was thinking?
Because they did a frontline show on his philosophy, and he said that he believed that the executive had been cut off at the knees by the Senate under the Nixon presidency, and that the executive should be more powerful, and the Senate and House and judiciary should be subordinate.
Which is the opposite of the founding fathers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
What was it, the script? What made you say yes to this?
Money.
We appreciate that, honestly. You saw it a few weeks ago. What did you think upon viewing it?
I think it's 6/8 of a great film.
6/8.
I think the acting is terrific, and I think a lot of the writing is good, but I don't really know why Oliver didn't come to a conclusion with it.
How'd you like working with Oliver? Oliver Stone.
Imagine working for Sean Hannity.
I would like that.
Really?
Well, then you'd like working with Oliver. Oliver believes...
They're the opposite philosophing.
Yes,
Sean
they are.
Hannity and Oliver
you know,
Stone.
you can be a fascist even when you're on the left.
Oh, I see. So
with the quarter of the film that you found are you saying the quarter of the film that you would like to change was the conclusion? You'd like more
I think there's
wrapped
a
up.
character missing from the film. I think it's a very good and shockingly empathetic picture of Bush.
why you say shockingly?
Because everyone expects him to be anti-Bush. And it's really very sympathetic to him.
Richard.
But it doesn't, it leaves out us. Because we were all terrified of our own president.
Right.
And that terror was our reality. And that character is not in the film. So that I question whether or not the film will have any historic legs.
Were you hoping in terms of affecting the election, you mean?
No,
Or just in terms of people coming back to it and...
I don't think it ever had a chance of affecting the election because Americans have a habit of making up their minds too soon. And when I had a deal with all my friends, I had a deal with my friends on the left. I said, go to see Passion of Christ, then we'll talk.
Yeah.
Go to see 9/11, then we'll talk. Nobody saw anything. They had made their minds up before they had to.
I want to change the subject a little bit because I want to talk about something that
About
you're...
how good looking I am?
What? Well, that too, but I want to talk about, you're very passionate about this, so I want to get it in. For several years, you have really been trying to get civics taught in schools. You're very passionate about this. You say that without civics and the knowledge of it, we won't survive for the next 30 years. If you can explain it as simply as you can for us, why this is so important to be taught in schools.
Well, first of all, we have technology that allows us not just to damage the world, but to end it. And the founding fathers didn't do all that work to pass it off to people who would behave at their worst. And the reason for public schooling is to raise up good citizenship. That's in 40% of the state's mandates. And civics is simply the teaching of the pre-partisan tools of expertise that one needs to run a Republican democracy. And if you don't have that expertise, you are bound to make an error. And when you do that in geopolitics, you can end the world.
Well, you said something that really struck me downstairs. You said so many people who come to this country know how great our country is. They know what to do with it. We don't. Our kids don't know what our country is about.
This is the only country in the history of the world that is based on ideas only. We have no common ancestry or religion or location. We have only ideas.
The Greeks.
Well,
The ancient Greeks.
They developed ideas, but they didn't base their society on those ideas. We did. And if those ideas are not taught, because there's no genetic discovery coming up that says we have an advantage about running a democracy, unless we're taught what the system is and how it's best used, we'll lose it.
So
And that's what we're
Like any
doing
family
because we
tradition,
don't
right.
teach civics.
right. So
And television is the biggest villain of all because they have destroyed context.
So as it turns out, if you didn't know civics was not being taught in your schools, wake up and pay attention, go check it out. It is true. W is playing in theaters nationwide, and when we come back, Duffy is singing. Check it out, Civics. What a concept.